I took this job 3 years ago at the height of the most economic depressing environment in Calgary's history. What was I thinking? It's not just me or you that wonder that. Certainly I know that my mother is looking down at me and she is saying, if there is a hard path or road, you will find it. And certainly this time you outdid yourself. It's been a hard road for Calgary, and there's people that continue to suffer during this downturn. There's no question about it. But the reality is that we led the country with GDP growth last year, and we're forecasted to show very modest growth for the next couple of years. Now, there's some people, most of those people in Ottawa, that think that things are back to normal and that we have a healthy economy. But the reality is the energy industry has changed forever. Our number one competitor, or client, became our number one competitor, and the global energy supply map has changed forever. We are now in an intense global market share war. And those energy companies that occupied the office space of downtown Calgary are no longer going to be the big job creators or occupy that office space like they have in the past. It is a time of uncertainty for Calgary. Like many other jurisdictions, we're facing times of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And certainly we know that the pipeline challenges that we've had and the lengthy regulatory process that we're under all the time is creating great uncertainty and risk for the investors, and they attach that to our economy. What I like to call investment purgatory. So if you still have friends in BC, just remind them that a life without petroleum products is probably somewhere around 1920 to 1930. And if they're okay riding around on a moose, buck naked, then that's good for them. And then you look to the south of us, and certainly Trump is creating uncertainty all on his own. But for us here in Calgary, what we care about is tax reform. For the first time in many, many decades, Canadian companies are at par with US companies from a corporate tax perspective. And although I'm confident that this is not a threat to us as a standalone, when you marry that with this investment purgatory, it becomes increasingly difficult to attract and retain good companies and great people here in Calgary. And then, of course, there's NAFTA. That's creating uncertainty for Canadians and for Albertans. A lot of people don't know that 85% of Alberta companies don't export anywhere. This should be a wake-up call for us. The good news is trade agreements like CETA and CPTPP, whoever made that acronym up, are an opportunity for us to take goods and products and services to new markets and new customers. But out of all of those threats, the thing that keeps me up more than anything else at night is the risk of innovation and technology. And the reality of that is that will put us further behind than anything else from a global competitiveness perspective. More than any policy, any regulatory process, any political trend, or any economic trend. We're good at navigating around those. And if we don't find a workaround solution, then we just elect another political party. And if you think about this, the technology is no longer a sector. It is across every single industry. You heard a lot about that today. And we are truly in the Industrial Revolution 4.0, or Industry 4.0. And compared to the previous industrial revolutions, which were quite linear, the introduction of steam, the introduction of energy, the introduction of IT and automation, the exponential change that is happening right now with the convergence of physical, digital, and virtual technologies is alarming, whether it be artificial intelligence, big data, cybersecurity, AR, VR, blockchain, 3D printing, autonomous vehicles. It is all coming at us together and converging. We hardly know how to deal with one of these technologies, not to mention when they're layered on top of each other. And if you think about companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, or Apple, who typically focused a lot on the consumer, they're now looking at these industrial sectors and thinking this is our big opportunity. Industrial sectors like energy, agriculture, transportation and logistics, healthcare, infrastructure. And companies like Cisco and Intel are saying that this is going to be 80% of their future business. And it will provide productivity, predictability, and efficiency in all of the industrial sectors. And through that, will inject 15 trillion, capital T trillion, into the global GDP value of the world. This is all good news for Calgary. We have a strength and a focus on these industrial sectors: energy, agriculture, transportation. And we're growing in things like healthcare and life science. We are certainly at a crossroad, but if you think about what we have here, we have head offices, which are clients that those customers are looking for. We have the highest concentration of headquarters in the country that happen to be in energy, agriculture, and transportation. We have the highest concentration of millionaires in this country. They may not be as rich as they used to be, but they're still millionaires. And they have this unlocked capital that they're used to investing in below-the-ground innovation that they can and should invest in above-the-ground innovation and technology that will help them be more productive, more predictable, and more efficient. We're certainly at a crossroad here in Calgary, but the reality is we have the right to win to be the innovation center for those industries. Now I'm going to tell you a little story. I know what you're all thinking. When is she going to stop talking about Amazon? Amazon was a great experience for Calgary and a great experience for Calgary economic development. First of all, they phoned and said, by the way, everybody walks around Amazon saying, when they commit to something to do at work, you bet I'll fight a bear for you, which is great. That's the highest form of flattery. But Calgary also got $150 million media hits on CNN, Financial Times, New York Times, Seattle Times, Seattle Times, Seattle Times. But the greatest learning came from the call that we got from the woman that was running the project out of Washington, D.C. And she phoned within minutes. I used to say 20, now I say 7. Next week I'll say 5. But she did phone, and she debriefed with us. And I asked her a couple of questions. The first question I asked her, I said, did you understand that we have premium office space available in this city that you could move into tomorrow? She said, yes. Did you understand that when you're fully ramped up, you could save $2.2 billion a year just on healthcare and wages? She said, yes. Did you understand the big offer we put on the table? She said, yes. Did you understand that we have a long history of building highly educated talent pools here, and it barely has an impact on our infrastructure or our social issues? She said, yes, but we also looked at that talent, and it was a data-driven exercise. And we saw that you don't have a history, nor do you have a funnel or a pipeline to build the talent required for the new economy. Software engineers, data scientists, coders, and programmers. And you know what? She was right. If you compare Calgary to the rest of the country, of our tech talent, all the other cities have somewhere between 50 and 63% of their tech talent are software engineers, data scientists, coders, and programmers. Calgary has 25%, which isn't surprising given that we were so focused on the energy industry, and we have really good, high-quality petroleum engineers and reservoir engineers. And when we looked at it further, we realized that all the tech companies that are here have 1,000 jobs open today. Some of them that they couldn't fill for a year. And what jobs were they? Software engineers, data scientists, coders, and programmers. But I'm a believer you have to persevere. Like Winston Churchill said, when things are going to hell, there's nothing to do but move forward. So I picked myself up out of the fetal position in the corner of my office, and I went to the government of Alberta and I said, look, we have a problem. If we're going to survive in the new economy and own the innovation in our industrial sectors and be more competitive globally in those industrial sectors, then we need more talent. So in fairness to them, within 60 days, they announced $50 million for 3,000 tech spots in the education system. And we've been working with the post-secondaries to roll out customized, and particularly the University of Calgary to do programs where we can have our engineers do 2 semesters and become a good software engineer or a data scientist. And believe me, we are out recruiting too. Now, we may not get Amazon's headquarters, but we want companies that will pull talent into this community. And in fact, we're at Tech Fest this week in Toronto recruiting talent to come to Calgary. Because in spite of what they think, a horse and a buggy in Waterloo is not as exciting as the Rocky Mountain Playground. Now, I don't want to leave you with the wrong impression. I'm from Ontario, by the way, I can say that. I don't want to leave you with the wrong impression. I have to tell you that the innovation ecosystem has been quietly strengthening here in Calgary. And our next economic wave and the height of that economic wave will be determined on how we embrace technology, round out our talent pool, and strengthen our economic ecosystem, or innovation ecosystem here in Calgary. And I'm quite proud of this community because it was only 14 months ago that I was sitting in a room at our economic summit and somebody, and I think it was the mayor, which is interesting all in itself, said, you're not moving fast enough. And in 14 months, the things that have happened have been amazing in this town. From this building, the nucleus, to the platform, to the Edison, to rocket space, to rainforest, to creative destructive labs, to the entrepreneurial hub up at the university, to Calgary Technologies, Inc., reinventing itself and focused on scale up, to Calgary Economic Development, buying the assets of startup and reinventing that program, to the university starting to focus more on tech transfer with more favorable IP protocol, to the city of Calgary, giving Calgary Economic Development $100 million to invest in catalytic and transformative projects here in Calgary. Now, I can see that money, but I can't touch it, just for the record, so I won't be giving it out. But it's interesting, and increasingly, we're seeing entrepreneurs come together with corporate partners. And the real success will come, although it's not as mature, is if we build out that innovation ecosystem and make it as concentrated and successful as we have the energy ecosystem. And you think about this 8-block radius in downtown Calgary, this is infrastructure innovation ecosystems are clamoring to create. A place where people collide and collaborate, a place you can do 8 meetings in a day, and you do a deal on a handshake in a Tim Hortons line. So it is important that we overlay this innovation ecosystem over top of our industrial ecosystems. We have to recreate them, and we have to layer them on top. I know that we can be successful in this city when every corporation in this city knows where to go to meet a startup that can solve their problem or a scale-up company that can solve their problem. We're companies that are in the energy industry, the transportation industry, aerospace industry, and agriculture are all working on common technologies to solve the problems and make their industries more efficient. Where young people can be mentored and learn from the seasoned people. Or in the case of technology, it might be the seasoned people learning from the young. But I am confident that Calgary can do it. And the reason that I'm confident that Calgary can do it, because we are a jurisdiction that perseveres and embraces ingenuity. We are a place where the Indigenous people came, and in spite of the harsh conditions, they thrived and lived here for thousands of years. We are a jurisdiction that managed and navigated the toughest topography in the country to put the CP rail through the Rocky Mountains. And we are a jurisdiction where the energy industry cleverly figured out how to go 3 kilometers down, 5 kilometers across, and hit a bathtub-sized target and extract really difficult product out of very difficult geology to serve the world. And more recently, just 5 years ago next month, this is a city that rallied around each other and helped each other out to get the city up and operating within a few short days, so 1 million people could descend upon here for the Calgary Stampede. This is a city where nothing is impossible. This is a city, come hell or high water, that we make sure that nothing is impossible. Now back to me. This history of this jurisdiction has always inspired me. It has always inspired me. Now, I grew up with 4 older brothers, not these ones. These ones look nice. It was could have been such a negative force for me. It didn't matter if we were swimming or skiing or skating or simply running up the stairs of our house. Everything was a competition, and I had to embrace it and fight like hell. But I was brought up to believe that you have to persevere and that nothing is impossible. You can beat those boys, even as mean as they are. Like many of you, I didn't grow up here in Calgary. I came here, and in fact, I came here crying. Don't tell my boss that, by the way. But it was a city that I felt like I belonged. And sure, part of it is because of the quality of life we have here with this Rocky Mountain playground, and the fact that it is a safe community, and the fact that I could afford a home on an airline salary. That was funny, by the way. And the fact that this is a place of inclusiveness and it's a meritocracy. And if you want to work hard, you can do well here. But more importantly, it was because I was surrounded by people who embraced and breathed the concept and the idea that nothing is impossible. This is why I love my job, because I believe with being focused and working together that we can accomplish this. If Calgary was a stock, I would recommend you all buy it. There is no reason why Calgary cannot be the place of choice in Canada, where the world's best entrepreneurs will come here. And they will embrace innovation, and they will create solutions for us to deliver products to the rest of the world. And we will deliver the greatest things that humans need. Safe food, clean energy, easy transportation, and good health. Nothing is impossible in Calgary. Thank you very much.